Let me tell you, I can't wait, and I have the faith that someday we'll be in the position that you're in, that you won, and you guys are just agonizing over this team. Like you're coming off a win and just like, oh my God.
But D,
I
so
can't
you
wait.
get God bless your levity, because we act like we're coming off these 9, 10 win, 11 bowl. Like, what is going on with what we're criticizing?
Like at some point, let's get some wins, you know?
Like winning is hard, right, David? Like winning is
Yes.
hard.
And in fairness, I do that not necessarily on a show all the time, but with the Guardians here. Like they went to the ALCS last year, but they never, I mean, they have a bunch of dudes hitting like 210 and they're 500.
A lot of
my
corner
sons and I sit there
outfilders, and you've given away your pitching. So
yeah, we watch them every night, and sometimes you're like, God, how do they win that game? But you're sitting there doing exactly what you guys just did for the last 10 minutes.
Oh,
exactly.
God, it's incredible.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Bless your heart. All right, so what do you think we're going to see here? We've talked to you a couple weeks ago, and then you watched the game play out with Wyoming, and does it confirm what you thought, or is it like, how do you compartmentalize what you thought going in versus what you saw against Wyoming?
Well, our first conversation, and I talked to, somebody in Cheyenne last week, and and it was all Ben Finley. Ben Finley, that's our quarterback, right? And he's returning, and Akron hasn't had a guy come back after starting at quarterback every game the year before. It's been 7 or 8 years since that's happened. And ultimately, Ben Finley did not look good. Now, was there an offensive line issue? Maybe. He seemed to be under a lot of pressure. But, I mean, everybody from Wyoming was very nice, but they're coming off a 3-9, and frankly, they looked like it. But the Zips couldn't score against them, and it was 3-0 until 4:21 to go in the fourth quarter, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I that changed for everybody following Akron. I think our perspective on what to expect out of this season.
So it's more the constants weren't what you thought they were, more than you need to limit the variables. Oh, that could be discouraging.
Oh, yeah.
Well, as bad as Wyoming looked at times, Akron held them to 10 points, right? And 3 points through most of the game with pretty much no help from the offense. So it makes you feel better about the defense. The other thing that I can take some comfort in is, we're coming off of winning 1 game and then 2 games and then 2 games and then 2 games, and last year 4, right? So we've seen a lot of not winning. But even with that, we're in year 4 of Coach Joe Moorhead. I'm shocked sometimes when they roll out in like week 8 and they're 1-7 and just they play. Like they come to play. Somehow that dude gets them to play every week. So I'm not ready to just like throw away the rest of the season. I'm sure they'll get better, so on and so forth. But that does give me a little comfort that coaching staff, they find a way to not lose the team. Is that that's probably a fair way to put it.
Absolutely, yeah.
David, when you look at the game last week against Wyoming, obviously you mentioned like it was 3-0 into the fourth quarter. They tack on that touchdown late. Obviously a very close game. Did it feel like when you're watching it, because Wyoming did outgain them by outgain Akron by almost 200 yards of total off. Like, did it feel that close, or did it feel like Wyoming was kind of waiting for the dam to burst a little bit? Like, what was the vibe watching it with that kind of discrepancy in yardage?
I think the vibe, and we actually may have talked about this in the third quarter on the air, that was the sort of muck it up type game that Akron sometimes needs to play to win. And I'll go back to the game before that, the last game of the season last year against Toledo, who, again, I mean, they had votes in the AP poll before they lost to Kentucky this week. But, like, that's a good team in our conference, right? And they came into Akron on Tuesday night, a MACtion game, and it was just that trudge it out. Nobody could do anything. It was 14-14 going into overtime, and the Zips won. And it felt like, okay, it's 3-0. Like, all we need is Wyoming to screw up a defensive assignment, and Akron pops a big play and they're in the lead and you're there, right? Like I mean, as awful as it was to watch, for most of the night, I think you still kind of felt until they made it 10-0 that like, yeah, we kind of got them right where we want them. We can punk them right now, but it just didn't break. It just didn't happen.
So let me ask you something, because kind of, and I used to coach Sam Scott in high school, who was playing for Wyoming.
Yeah.
And listen, tackling outside the numbers, especially with one particular concept and one particular receiver, how much of that do you look at as kind of an anomaly versus because between the two, I mean, that was kind of the bulk of Wyoming's offense, and there was a ton of running after the catch by him as well. So I get that. How much can you build on defensively what you're capable of doing what versus what happened in that particular game?
First of all, okay, so you coached him at Scott, is that correct?
Yeah. So before he left Scott, he was at Omaha North, is where
Oh, okay.
my
Because
primary
I was fascinated by the whole Sam Scott went to Scott thing. I didn't really go big with that on the
Listen,
broadcast.
that was a great big to do. He transferred during the COVID year. His Class A wasn't playing. A lot of schools in Class A weren't playing that year. They sat out, and he wanted to play his senior year. That was a mess. But yeah,
So the question is, they gave up 120 whatever yards to one guy on like 25 carries, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
how do you reconcile that? So yeah, I think that's 5 yards. I should probably have that in front of me. 5 point something yards per carry, right? Um, I don't think that was a surprise. I think if there's been a weakness with the Zips defensively, it's been that sort of thing, right? Like teams can run on Akron. Yeah, I'm not really answering your question that well, but if I am answering it, I'm saying I'm not surprised. And I don't know what the coaches do to say, hey, well, we did this and we contained him when he tried to run up the middle because he didn't really do that much. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think that's one of those, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z to get better so this doesn't happen again.
How about Durr after the catch, like in the open field? Is that something, because obviously that was Wyoming's next best option, was to get him out in space. And Akron had a hard time getting him to the ground. Is that a thing that you think is going to be an issue?
I think the bigger issue is why that allowed to happen, because they didn't get to the quarterback.
Gotcha.
Right. I think that's the bigger concern. And Akron is not again, I can go back over the years in recent history, and it's not like we've rolled up a bunch of turnovers and, done but usually you get a couple of sacks during a game, and they didn't, I mean, I think that's, and I'm saying this, and I'm not at all trying to disparage Wyoming. I mean, I guess if you're ranking the Mountain West is better than the MAC and all these different things, but Akron had trouble with that offensive line, which I don't think is regarded as one of the top lines in the Mountain West. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll go 10-2 this year or whatever. But I think the bigger concern is Akron was not forcing pressure on Wyoming's offense, and Wyoming's defense was able to put a lot of pressure on Ben Finley. It's the line play.
David, if you had to look at something specific and say, hey, I thought Akron did this really well and they might be able to replicate that throughout the season, what would that be?
The resiliency of that defense. I mean, they did have some short yardage situations, and they did get a couple of fourth down stops. Like they played from wire to wire. Like even after Akron turned it over again, down 10-0 with like 3 minutes to go, they got the ball back. I think that's really, and that might be surprising again because of all the talk we had about the weapons on offense and blah, blah, blah. But like the defense is the cornerstone, I think, at least after one game for this team.
How about handling the environment? 6:30 kick. Nebraska should be well and lathered up in that environment at Memorial Stadium. How about what you think, Coach Moorhead? He's played in some big venues. What do you think Lincoln represents in terms of how Akron looks at the opportunity?
Moorhead was very vocal last year about not liking Akron's schedule. Okay. So they played at Ohio State, they played at Rutgers, they played at South Carolina. And then the FCS game was in the middle there somewhere. So you're 1-3 out of the box. Right. And he was very vocal about, like, this is not the way to build a program, is just go and get smoked everywhere. Now, having said that, most of the guys on the team have been in that environment already, like 3 times last year. And this is the one this year. Okay, so it probably makes it a little bit different. Like this is our because next week is UAB, and then Duquesne comes. Like this is the game this year for the Zips. And at practice yesterday, they're playing the music as loud as they can and all that sort of stuff. I mean, yeah, he knows how to prepare them for that, and I think a lot of that is maybe how they'll measure success is like the scripted plays at the beginning of the game. How well can they scheme to go out and try to do something early? I'm not making assumptions that things can get out of hand, but we're all looking at different numbers and predictions and whatever.
I don't know. I think does 34.5 seem right?
Yeah, I mean, because you guys struggled. I really shouldn't talk about this, but like you put up 20 points on Cincinnati.
Oh, do tell.
Okay. I mean, now let me tell you. So the one time I've been to Nebraska I've been to Nebraska, but to a game was the other time that Akron played there. I was actually a student, and two of my buddies went out there in 97, and it was a day. Do you know what else happened that day?
In 97, aside from Joel Makovic,
world significance.
97.
August 30th, 97. Princess Diana died.
Oh, wow.
So the game was at noon or 11 a.m. or whatever your time, and we went out there, and I mean, it's what happened was expected to happen, right? I think it was 59-14. Akron put in their backup quarterback who went on to be the starter most of the time, a guy named Butchie Washington. But yeah, my buddies and I were driving back because we went out Friday night and we were driving back after the game. We hit the Field of Dreams at like 11:30 at night, kind of like on a little detour, but it's like 8:00 or whatever. And we pulled up to this. I actually ran out of gas in Ames.
Well, you guys didn't want to see the bridges of Madison County? You went right to the Field of
I don't know anything about that. But like, anyway, some dude came on whatever radio station we were listening to. He's like, and he's like, I got some news, it was just like playing music, and Princess Diana died in a car crash. Like we just, old school. We just heard it on the radio. But anyway, why did I start talking about that? 97, the Zips were there. Oh yeah, it was like a huge point spread in action. Akron actually covered, even though they lost 59-14. So that was the whole point of that. And then I just told you about my whole trip to Nebraska when I was 19 years old. It was great.
How about this one before we let you out? You talked about the venue, and it's the one big one, and who's coming next. Without the postseason opportunity, any chance that like this is their bowl game mentality for this football team?
No, because I think that
I'm trying.
No, I really think that success within the conference is gonna be the key for this team, right? Like okay, so Toledo they had 13 votes in the AP poll, and they couldn't manage any offense against Kentucky. Yeah. Right. And they lost by 8. Miami already lost, like everybody lost. Central Michigan won out at San Jose State. There's like 4 schools.
Valiant effort from Buffalo against Minnesota.
Yeah. But like it's, you watched all those games and it's like, okay, like it's the MAC. Let's go. Right. Like anything can happen in those games. So I really think, next week is big against UAB because that's another team that hasn't played well the last 5-6 years or whenever they restored their program, right? And then you're looking, I know week to week, they got to be thinking these are winnable games. And they may be just because that's what the Mid-American Conference is. So yeah, it's great. We're there. It's 85,000 people, 60 years of sellouts, all that great stuff. It's going to be awesome. But from the team standpoint, I would think the bigger games are like later when it's like, hey, let's go try and do something.
Gotcha.
That's David Skoczen, voice of
looking forward to seeing you. You'll be right next door to us. I'm gonna go.
All right. I can't wait.
We appreciate it, David. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Thanks, Dave.
That's David Skoczen, voice of Akron football.